hall, which is coinciding with our rebrand. So everybody go and check out the page at forever.ud on Instagram for more information. We've got a website that'll be coming out soon. And everything will be great as we keep going along this school year. We look forward to having each and every one of you on every single time we have one of these events. All right, let's just start off with a quick introduction. My name is Jalen Pettis. I'm the Vice President of UD. I've been with these guys since the beginning, and I'm looking forward to making this club a full success.
My name is Lucas Joshi. I'm the co-founder of Unity and Diversity. I'm also the senior member, and I'm a communications advisor for Unity and Diversity.
My name is Akil Taraga. I'm the president of Unity and Diversity, along with Lokesh as a co-founder. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and yeah, let's get it.
All right, and let's introduce our guests. Ms. Cope, would you not mind introducing yourself for us, please?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for having me today. I am Veronica Cope. I am judge-elect of the Gwinnett County State Court Judge. I'm currently an attorney practicing here primarily in Gwinnett County.
All right, great. Well, without further ado, let's go on and get into the questions. So, State Court Judge, could you just fill us in on what this?
Sure. So, Jalen, okay, I think you froze for a second. Okay, so sure. So I did I hear all of the questions? I think you asked me what a state court judge does. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So a state court judge handles misdemeanor cases, which are your cases that are punishable by up to 12 months in jail and or a $1,000 fine. These are the cases that are brought by and prosecuted by the solicitor's office. The state court judge also handles civil cases such as traffic offenses, as well as your misdemeanor DUI cases, which are all misdemeanors, your misdemeanor vehicular homicide cases, all of the civil matters for which the Superior Court does not have exclusive jurisdiction. Those are all matters that are handled by state court judges. In Gwinnett County, we have 6 state court judges which handle all of the misdemeanors and the that are brought by the solicitor's office and all the civil matters for the entire county of Gwinnett. So that's what state court judges do and what I will do starting in January of 2021.
Okay, you should kick me again.
That was, yeah, that was great. Thank you, Ms. Cope.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so now this leads on to another question. What is the legacy that you would like to leave on law and justice in Gwinnett County?
So I've been practicing 19 years, hard to believe, probably before you guys were born. But I enjoy practicing law. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for undergrad and law school and have been practicing here in the Atlanta area since that time. The legacy that I'd like to leave here in Gwinnett County has a lot to do with the reason that I even practice law and the reason that I ran for judge. And that is to ensure fairness and justice for all. I have wanted to be a lawyer since I was 8 years old. I always thought that I was just fascinated by people like Matlock and Perry Mason on TV, who you might be a little bit too young to know. But I also always wanted to make sure that I could represent the little guy. And believe it or not, I started my career, I was not representing the little guy. I represented Fortune 50 companies, all over the state of Georgia and in the United States. But about 10 years ago, I started my own practice, practicing criminal defense, as well as some of your plaintiff's personal injury. And so the legacy that I want to leave as both, I'd say, an attorney and as a judge, when I take the bench, would be one of, as I said, fairness, justice, and impartiality. When you're in front of a judge, most of the time it's not the best day, unless this is an adoption or something like that. So it's sometimes a challenging time for people that are in front of judges. And what I want my legacy to be is, I want everybody that comes in that courtroom to be respected, to be treated as a human being with dignity, to feel like they've had an opportunity to have their case heard, their voices heard. Fairness is big for me, and justice for all. And when I say for all, I mean that. I mean for the victim, I mean for the defendant, I mean for everybody that's in that courtroom at that time. And one of the things that I have taken from one of the judges that has been a mentor to me has been to always remember, at the time I was still running for judge, but she would say, always remember, if you ever become a judge, that every single one of those files, every single one of those cases, those thousands of cases that will come across your desk represents a person or a corporation or an individual, and to treat them as such, to always treat every file, understanding that that is a person, or that is a family, or that is a company, whether it be a large corporation or a sole proprietor. So that's what I want my legacy to be, to one of fairness to all.
So Mrs. Cope, obviously you just talked about how you want to make Gwinnett County fair for all and whatnot. Obviously through you being a lawyer, through your term of being a lawyer in Gwinnett County, alongside you just being the state court judge-elect, how will you work to make Gwinnett County equal for all and something where everybody can thrive, like all of our citizens can thrive and everybody can feel welcome?
Well, I've always had a philosophy of inclusion with everything that I've done. I consider myself a community servant, a servant leader. And one of the things that drew me when I first moved to Georgia, I lived from North Carolina, I lived in DeKalb County. I loved DeKalb County. But one of the things that drew me to Gwinnett County years ago was the school system and the diversity of the county. As you all may know, Gwinnett County is one of the most diverse counties in the country, in the entire nation. And I think that that is the diversity of religion, of race, of thought. Those things are what make Gwinnett County thrive, in my opinion. And so as I've been ingrained into Gwinnett County, what I've tried to do is to learn as much as I can about the county in order to serve the county. For me, this is all about service. Even going back to practicing law, how can I serve the community? That's something that was handed down to me from my mother and my father, specifically my mother, just knowing how to serve the community. And so I want to take the things that I've learned. I have been a part, and I actually on this week, I'll graduate from Leadership Gwinnett class of 2020, has been one of the greatest experiences of my life, because I've been able to learn the inner workings of the county, how each department works together to be able to make Gwinnett County one of the best places to work, live, and play. So I want to use all of that information to inform me as I take the bench, and also as I continue my practice until the end of the year, so that everybody can thrive. Including investing in our youth. That is one thing that's near and dear to my heart, is providing opportunities for our youth. You will be leaders. Hopefully you'll go off to school and you'll come back and you will be the leaders who will lead this county. And so I want to utilize my talents, my skills to be able to to bring those things into my practice now, and to inform my decisions as a judge on the state court come January.
All right, great.
Thank you.
You brought up a great point about youth involvement. I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there who aren't as politically active as us three or our entire group of peers. So for those who are yearning to get more active in the political community, how do we really do that? Because as kids, we kind of get ostracized or told that we don't know anything. How do we actually get past that and actually get active and involved in the community?
Well, one of the things you can do is what you guys are doing right now. I love the fact that you've started Unity and Diversity to try to learn more about candidates, about government, about how the judicial system and how it all works, about cultural diversity and the importance of cultural diversity, about different cultures. I applaud you all for this initiative. I'd like to see it, in other high schools and even in middle school, because you learn a lot about government, your civics class and social studies, that kind of thing. But there's nothing like actually getting an opportunity to go and sit in a courtroom, and observe, to go and, go to, I know that the police department and the sheriff's department, they have initiatives that bring youth in as well. But I think there is no experience like hands-on experience and actually getting into these departments, whether seeking internships, starting or other organizations, like I said, organizations like yours in other high schools and middle schools. I'll also tell you about, and I apologize if I say the name incorrectly. I should know this because a reminder came up on my Facebook for participating last year, but the Gwinnett County Youth Commission is something that our youth can get involved in. This is a program that was started a couple of years ago by Nicole Love Hendrickson when she was working with the county. And this is a program that takes youth into the county and into the county offices and teaches them about county government as high school students. And so that's a phenomenal way for our youth to get involved at an early age. Because as I said, some of you hopefully will come back to Gwinnett County and you will be those leaders. So we want to introduce these things into our schools now.
All right, great.
Yeah. And you obviously already explained this a lot, but personally speaking, what do the terms law and order mean to you?
So I think that term means different things for different people. A lot of people, when they think of law and order, they think about being tough on crime. It's become synonymous with being tough on crime. For me, being tough on crime and imposing strict penalties, particularly when you have either a violent or a property crime. And for me, law and order means abiding by the law. It means following the law. It means having respect for the law. And I think as judges, and I say we as judge-elect, but as judges, there's a fine line that you often have to toe. And this is where it's so important to look at each case on an individual basis. We all live here. We all live here in Gwinnett County. And, a lot of people say, well, how can you be a defense attorney, and represent criminals? And what I say to that is each and every one of us have constitutional and states' rights that protect us. There are some people that hurt other people, that hurt, that deserve to be in jail. However, there are some people that can be rehabilitated. I believe in restorative justice. I believe in, utilizing our strictest punishment for those that need it, but for those that can be restored and allowed to be that can become productive citizens we need to look at that. We need to look at how we utilize our resources best to make sure that we have a community that is safe. I'm raising 2 young men here my kids go to school in the Archer district. I live, work, and play here too. I want to be in a safe community. And so, I don't want people to think, well, how can you punish people and you've been a defense attorney? That's where you make that adjustment. Right now, I'm an advocate for my clients. As a judge, I will be a neutral. I will listen to the law. I will listen to the facts and I will apply the law to those facts. I will interpret the law. And so there is a balance, but that balance, we can meet that balance. We can have that balance where, one of the things that it's going back a little bit to what I like my legacy to be. One of the things that I've advocated for is a second chance teen court. And this would be a court where we have youth who are charged with crimes between 17 and 21. I'm sorry, it's sad to say it, but at 17, most people are not mature adults. And I know you probably disagree with me, but to hold them, as adults under the law sometimes can be difficult. Now, as a judge, if that is the status of the current law, and that's what I will have to abide by. But I also need people to understand that some, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds that, possibly commit nonviolent crimes can be rehabilitated. Let's make sure they have an education. Let's make sure they have job training. I want to work with the schools. I want to work with Gwinnett Tech. I want to work with GGC. I want to work, with our juvenile court system to develop a program to make sure that they are held accountable. And this would be an accountability court, but they are held accountable, but they're also given life skills so they don't make those same mistakes again, so that they're not stuck in our criminal justice system, being on probation on this, on this wheel that they can't get off of. So that's one of the things that I want to do, as well as making sure that we find a way to deal with the mentally ill that are within our legal system. And so, law and order takes on many different connotations, and we just need to make sure that we are being fair and that we are treating people that the sentence fits the crime if necessary.
Okay, so tying into that, Mrs. Scope, I'm sure you've heard of equal justice under law. And so how will you ensure that every citizen, especially from the Gwinnett County area, receives and can have that term applied to them, equal justice under law? How would you be able to interpret that and apply it to all our citizens?
That's a great question. What does it mean when you say, equal justice under the law? And I can tell you what that means for me. What that means for me is no matter your pedigree, no matter who your parents are, or your grandparents, or who you are, no matter your education, no matter your race, your gender, how you identify, none of those things should come into play when you're in front of a judge, when you're in the judicial system. None of those things should matter. All that should matter is the law and the facts, and that's it. And so one of the things that I want to make sure of as a judge is that in my courtroom, I need people to feel that none of those immutable characteristics matter. I need people to walk away from my courtroom believing that they've had their voice heard, that justice has truly been served. Like I said, whether they're a victim or whether they're a defendant, whether they're an attorney, a corporation, a sole proprietor, it should not matter. None of those things should matter. And that's, to me, what equal justice under the law means. We learn that Pledge of Allegiance from the time that we're 5 years old, and I tell people the last 3 words of that pledge are justice for all. We have to make sure that that's just not something that is a part of our routine memory, something that we just say. What does it mean? We have protections in our Constitution, in our state Constitution and our US Constitution to ensure equal justice of the law under the law. We need to make sure those are not just words that were printed way back hundreds of years ago, but they have effect here today in 2020.
Absolutely. And I mean, of course, you've been a defense attorney. You've had hundreds of clients, I'm sure, throughout the 19 plus years you've been in practice. Obviously, you have to pick a side when you're working as an attorney, and you have to prove why your client is in the right, correct?
Correct.
And so being a state court judge, obviously, you won't have that facility, right? You have to make sure everything is neutral. You have to listen to both sides of the argument. And so obviously, that means you have to practice impartiality and weigh both sides equally. So how will you be able to make that change? Of course, going from a criminal lawyer to a state court judge, it's a big difference. I mean, it's a big gap, and you're switching spots in this sense. So how would you, as a current lawyer, be able to transition into a judge starting in 2021?
So it is a transition. I'm glad you pointed that out, because people, how can you do that? You know, you've been, you know, and before I became a criminal defense attorney, I did civil defense. So I've always been on the defense side.
So you've always been on one side of the argument.
How can you make that change? And I will tell you, what we do in the criminal justice system, in the justice system generally, we are seeking the truth, right? And so if you're seeking the truth, it shouldn't matter what side that you're coming from as you're taking the bench, because there are a lot of prosecutors that have taken the bench as well. There are prosecutors, there are former civil, civil attorneys. I worked at a big firm doing business litigation, so I had big firm, big corporations as clients. So I've been across the gamut. I've been, I've defended, from a single person to a, multi-billion-dollar corporation. And so what you have to do becoming a judge, you're not stepping onto that bench without those past experiences.
Absolutely.
But when you get on that bench, your job, you have a new job now. And I will be honest with you, it will be a transition for me, which I'm learning every single day. It will be a transition for me to go from being an advocate to being a neutral. But that is what you must do. You have to be impartial. And to be able to do that, you're going to have to make sure that you follow the law. There's a certain thing called the rule of law. And if you're following that rule of law, then you will be impartial. You will let the facts guide you. You will let the facts of that individual case guide you. And that's what I have to do. And anybody else that comes to the bench, no matter what side of the bench they're coming from.
Okay, and I mean, obviously, you just mentioned you're also a civil lawyer before you turned into a criminal lawyer, and so obviously, a state court judge, you handle more civil cases than you handle criminal cases. And so how will you be able, I mean, I'm as far as my knowledge goes, you've had more experience with the criminal law side than you have with the civil cases side. And so how will you be able to make that transition? You go from a civil case lawyer to a criminal lawyer. You're still a lawyer, so it's easier for you to transition. Well, now you're going from a criminal lawyer to being a state court judge. And even then, you're unopposed. You were very highly liked from our county. And so how do you feel like you will be able to make that transition in the most smooth, the nicest way possible, without having any bias and still pleasing the people who voted for you and obviously for the rest of the constituents in the county?
Well, as I said, you said I have more. Let's say it this way. I practiced civil law for 9 years.
Okay.
And I practiced criminal law for 10 years. So I got, the scales weigh a little bit on criminal. And I will tell you, I have that civil experience. I have that criminal experience. I think that's something that makes me uniquely qualified for this position. Even as a criminal lawyer, I have taken some civil matters. So I've handled, some car accident cases, nothing too high level, because 90% of my caseload has been criminal. But I've had civil experience, and also I will That's why you don't rush to judgment. There will be plenty of times when I will have to, reserve judgment or take it under advisement, as the judges say, because I want to get it right. I want to get it right. So if it's something that I haven't practiced in 10 years, and I need to do the research, or if I need to work with my law clerk to make sure we have the research correct, I'll do that. You always hear the saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And I believe that. So I won't be a judge that's going to take, 6 months to rule on something that shouldn't take that long to rule on. But I want to get it right the first time. I want to make sure that we've done the correct research. If it's an area of the law that I haven't been in, and there will be some, because guess what? There's no lawyer walking the face of this earth, or no judge walking the face of this earth that knows every law or every area of practice. And so
that's why you have a wide variety. And you being a criminal lawyer, and this question just came in from Millen in Suwannee. And he wants to ask, obviously, you've been a criminal lawyer for 10 plus years. You've had enough experience to know almost everything that possibly can go down. How often do criminal cases in the county of Gwinnett either go to trial or end in a plea bargain? And how many of those have you actually been a part of?
So I will tell you that particularly your misdemeanor cases, there's a high percentage that do end in plea bargain. Okay. If I had to, and I hate to guess, but if I had to estimate, I would say over 75%. And somebody's going to correct me, obviously, if I'm wrong. It's okay. I don't mind being wrong. I'm human. But I would say that over 75% of cases, particularly misdemeanor cases that I would be presiding over, end in a plea, or what's called pretrial diversion, where it's taken out of the regular court system, and it's an alternative method of resolving the case. I have handled hundreds of cases, and a lot of them have resulted in pleas. Some of them have resulted in pretrial intervention. I have tried cases both here in Gwinnett County and also in DeKalb County, in Cobb County. Before I was ever a criminal defense attorney, I was handling matters for a large corporation and handling cases in Cobb. So I've got quite a bit of trial experience and that I am ready to utilize as an impartial.
That's quite interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's a large percentage. Now, I will say that as you get to your more serious case, your felony cases are handled by the Superior Court exclusively. So those are not handled in state court. And so you've got a lot more on the line, some cases, your capital cases where, where the death penalty can be imposed. You may have, more trials in those cases, but when you're talking about the misdemeanor cases, you can have, and don't get me wrong, there are very serious misdemeanor cases, including your DUIs, your vehicular homicides. Those are very serious cases that the outcome will certainly impact everybody involved. So don't get me wrong when I say that they're not as serious. Some of them are very serious. It's just that the sentencing, like I said, the max is 12 months in jail or $1,000 fine. So you're seeing more cases in state court that will wind up in a plea as opposed to going to trial. But those that come to trial, I'll be ready to try.
I just wanted to backtrack for a second. Going back to impartiality, obviously we all know that the judiciary prides itself on impartiality and fair and equal treatment and justice, which basically means removing all your personal biases. So we're all human. I mean, I think we all know that, I'm pretty sure anyways. So obviously this is sort of unrealistic in some senses. So are there any specific type of cases in which you would have to disqualify yourself or anything of that matter?
The only cases that I would likely have to disqualify myself is whether if I have previously represented someone involved in that case, or I know personally someone involved in the case, then I would have to recuse myself. Obviously, that would be on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, I've got clients now. So if those cases, are still pending, when I take the bench, I would have to disqualify myself then. Hopefully they won't still be pending. Any cases where I have previously represented a party, a witness, been involved in that case in any way, I would have to disqualify myself or recuse myself.
And this is just another question I've been thinking about. I mean, ever since I was little, like, I mean, my mom, my dad, they're always like, look at the glass half full instead of half empty. And, I've been thinking about that, but, and I think about when you defend, so when you're a defense attorney, you're going against the prosecution, right? Have you ever faced an ethical dilemma when you were representing your client?
Yes. And I think if we're honest, every attorney has faced an ethical dilemma. And I've had a situation where I've had to contact the state bar and get an advisory opinion as to whether or not I should proceed in the case. I have walked away from cases where I did not feel comfortable representing those individuals. And I say that, and I also need to say this. No matter what a person is charged with, if it's a criminal case, they're still entitled to have, they have rights. They have their constitutional rights. And I think that's what a lot of people forget sometimes, and so they should have counsel. But there are some things that, for me, I just didn't feel comfortable representing the individual. And so I would withdraw from the case. That's happened very seldom, very few times. But fortunately, as a working for myself as a sole practitioner, I was able to make that call, made sure that, they didn't waive any rights or anything like that. But I just didn't feel comfortable. And so I did not take the case, or I might walk away from that case. But there will always be, not always, there will be sometimes some cases, some clients where there's ethical dilemmas that you have to decide whether or not, you can proceed in that case.
Thank you.
So I'll open it up to a community question again. So I've got a question from Joy Pettis here. Says, can you please describe a situation in which you took a controversial position that angered or offended people and explain how you handled it?
A controversial position. That's so broad, Joy, Miss Pettis. And I wonder if it's in the context of being a lawyer or just generally. But I will say this. As an advocate, I have had to take difficult positions. I can't think of one specific example of where I've taken, a controversial position, but it happens. You've heard the saying, either you stand for something or you fall for anything. You have to, sometimes you have to draw that line in the sand and, stand up for what's right. Stand up for what you believe is right. And here is where, being respectful of others comes into play, because, Akil, I might not, stand on the same side of an issue as you. You might wind up, let's say you're an attorney. You might be on the other side. I might not agree with you. But what we have to do as lawyers, as jurists, we have to be respectful. We have to be courteous. That's where your professionalism comes into play. And there will be, I know there will be controversial issues that will come in front of me. And I'll have to make those tough decisions. But I'll tell you, if you consider yourself as a leader, you will let your morals guide you. You will let your beliefs guide you. And more so, even more so as a judge, let the law guide you into doing what is right, even in those controversial situations. So I'm sorry I can't come up with a specific example right this second, but that I can tell you that I will not rush to judgment. I will look at all the facts. I will, then make a decision on whatever the issue may be.
And here in unity and diversity, I mean, universal morality is ideal. Everybody wants everything good to happen. There's sometimes in many events, there's a clear line for good. There's a clear line for bad. And basically, a lot of people, including me, basically, if standing up for a criminal, it is needed. It is definite. But do you think that undermines the problem at hand?
So let's take the standing up for a criminal.
Right.
Let's take that part of what you said, and then we'll go into your answer.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, every person has those constitutional rights. Now, as the attorney, you are making sure that those rights are protected. Because there are cases when people are wrongfully accused. If there is one person that's wrongfully accused, that's too much. That's too many.
Absolutely.
So you need to make sure, that's what pushed me into, like I said, since a child, I've wanted to make sure that people's rights are protected. There are some people that are guilty. If I'm being honest, there are some people that come to me that are guilty of what they're being charged with. My goal at that point in time, it's not my client's job to prove his innocence. It's the state's part. That's the state's job to prove his guilt. You hear the whole innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately, that's not always the way things work. But as the attorney, and I'm speaking from the attorney at this point, since I'm not quite the state court judge yet, but right. As the attorney, your job is to make sure that all of those rights are protected. And sometimes it doesn't really make sense until it's you. Until you're the one that stopped for speeding when it was really another car that was in front of you that was speeding. Until you're the one that's wrongfully accused of shoplifting when it was someone else that was right beside you in the store. That kind of thing. So it sounds easier sometimes than it is until it's you, or until it's your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother. And that's when you want to make sure that person, that everybody's rights are protected. So in terms of making it worse, until we have a system where there truly is justice for all, I don't think that you make it worse when you provide a defense for someone charged with a crime. Until you have a system where those biases are checked, because we all have them. As I said, I don't know if you've ever heard the term implicit bias. Mm-hmm. Those are biases that you have, that you take into every situation that you're in, whether it's school, whether it's the courtroom, whether it's your business. Those are biases that you have but you have to learn how to identify them and check them. So, you know, we're always, nobody operates in a bubble. You know, if you're beyond 5 years old, you've had experiences that, you know, you will take with you, whether good or bad. You know, you will remember those things as you move forward. It's how you interpret, identify, and respond to those biases that's important.
It's great. You actually just segued into another community question. The person wanted to remain anonymous, but referencing recent events with the racial tensions that have been occurring in the country, how will you handle cases in which there is clear or implicit racial bias?
Well, I will tell you this, and this is where understanding the role of the judge comes into play. Anybody that tells you that there are not biases or in racial biases within the justice system, they're just being delusional. They are not in touch with reality. If you have been a part of our justice system, if you have had a loved one that it has been a part of our justice system, you know that there are certain racial biases that have shown their ugly faces within our justice system. All that you can do, and as a judge, like I said, remembering what the judge's position is in the case. Cases will come in front of me. The prosecutor, if it's a criminal case, the prosecutor will determine whether or not the case gets charged and how it gets charged. If it's a civil case, the attorneys will lay out all the facts. You know, you have some cases where there's either a allegation of racial harassment or employment issues, that kind of thing. Those matters will come in front of me. It's up to me to make sure that the law is being applied correctly and without bias. A judge can't say, well, a judge can't say, well, this person was only stopped because they were Indian or Black or Hispanic or white. You can look at the facts. You can look at all the facts and you can say, okay, well, was there any other reason why this person, if there's a video, let's say, were they speeding? Were they weaving? That's where the impartiality has to come in, because there are going to be situations where race plays a factor. It's just inevitable. But your job is as the judge is to make sure the law is applied correctly. That's all that you can do. You can, we all have our spidey senses. We have our sixth senses. You will utilize your life experiences. You will utilize the experiences that you've had growing up, and being around other people and being in certain situations. And you will sometimes be able to make that call, whether or not you think it was racially motivated or not. But as I said, as a judge, you have to check those biases. You have to be able to identify and check those biases and make sure that the law is applied properly in those cases.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Cope, obviously, leading into this racial bias, jury and jury duty, right? Majority of minorities in Gwinnett County and surrounding counties too, such as Forsyth and Fulton County, a lot of the immigrants here are on work visas or they're on green cards and they're not eligible for jury duty. And so majority of the juries here are usually of one ethnicity, or they're not as diverse as some would like. And so do you feel like the current jury duty, the current jurors that we have in the county, the current jurors that are on trial usually, do you feel like they're a proper representation of the general population of Gwinnett County? And this was a question asked by Randy of Lawrenceville, Georgia.
Well, I will say this. I have been taking cases in Gwinnett County since 2002.
Absolutely.
And I will say that the jurors that I see more recently are a lot more reflective of the community than they were at that time. And I will tell you, and there's been litigation, there's been, this is an issue that has been recognized in the county. And so I think that Gwinnett County has come a long way in making sure that the jury pool is truly reflective of the community. People, you know, whether it's criminal case or civil case, they're entitled to have a jury of their peers.
Absolutely.
And so if it's truly a jury of your peers, then every ethnicity, every, you know, all the different types of people that make up this beautiful county should be reflected in that jury pool, and people have worked hard and litigated hard to make sure that happens. So I will have to say, Lakesh, that the jury pool is more representative now than it used to be.
So you do feel like the Gwinnett County overall, the court system has improved, and the jurors that we have are more reflective of our community, correct?
I will say yes, now much more reflective than they were, let's say 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago.
I mean, it's also been a growing community. Obviously, we've become one of the most diverse counties in the country. So
yes.
It would be nice for that, you know?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry, I think I might have missed your question.
No, you answered it. You probably, that's exactly what we wanted, your personal opinion, right? I mean, this is all about what do you think and what will you do for the community, right? It's not about or any of that, right? This is more of a conversation between you and the community, you and us, and that type of thing.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this, you know, there are safeguards in place to make sure that a person does have a jury of his or her peers.
Absolutely. You know, that's the type of information that I didn't know. I mean, I'm learning lots of new stuff, right? I'm sure Akila and Jalen are as well. And then the people in the community, right? I'm getting texts right now on my phone, right? Everybody's texting me. Oh my God, this is so amazing. I just got a question saying, whoa, I didn't know about the jury system and how diverse it actually has become in the last 15, 20 years, right? And so it's a learning process for all of us. And quite honestly, I mean, we're growing up. I mean, we don't even remember 10 years ago, right? I mean, that's just reality. And so learning how much it's come across. I mean, you've been in practice for many years, graduated from one of the best universities in the country. So obviously, you know, you have much more experience than we do. And so it's nice getting the other perspective.
And I'll tell you, it's not a job that's done. It's not something that is finished. It is an ongoing job. It is, you know, to make sure that, you know, this issue, even an issue, and I say a small issue, it's not a small issue, it's a big issue, but it's an ongoing responsibility that the justice system, the judicial system has to make sure, you know, that those numbers are reflective. There's a U.S. Case from the U.S. Supreme Court, Batson versus Kentucky, that you may learn about at some point in school. I'm sorry.
So I mean, we have actually. I graduated from Parkview this year, but my gov teacher, we talked about this. He was a political science major himself, and so he used to talk about a lot of this. And so, you know, it's something that all of us are getting into the hang of. I mean, I'm 18. We're all around 17, 18, and so we're just getting into it. Right? I just voted for the first time this in June for our primaries, and so it was a new process. It's something that you finally get to learn, and so that's the whole purpose behind this, right? And it's to get the other perspective. Obviously, our county it has a long way to go. We've come a long way, but we also have a long way to go. And so I do feel like judges like you, new faces, right? I mean, till now it was one face, one color, one everything, and so we're finally getting that hang, right? I mean, I'm Indian, you're African American, I have white peers, and so we're all coming together, making one impact. And so it's really a new experience, if you get what I'm trying to say.
I do.
everything.
We have a long way to go. I mean, you mentioned something. We have a long way to go, but we've come from a long way. But we cannot do it unless we work together, unless we have the youth like yourselves who are willing to engage in this process, and to get involved. You mentioned you voted. That's another way, I was remiss in not mentioning it earlier when you're talking about how can people get involved.
Absolutely.
Utilizing your right to vote. I know that had to be empowering for you to vote for the first time. We've got
I'm being a first generation American. I mean, both of my parents coming from India, remote villages. It's a big difference, and getting to put that impact, right? Many people say, "Oh, my vote will make a difference. Why should I go out and vote?" Right? But I personally do feel like that one vote can change a lot, and so
it absolutely can change a lot. And it does. That is your voice. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice.
Absolutely.
You all. When I say you all, the youth, every person should be registered to vote. We have a runoff election coming up in August. On August 11th, we have runoff elections coming up from the primary. We have elections in November, and I have to say that Monday is the last day for people to register to vote. So even if they did not vote in the primary on June 9th, they have an opportunity to register to vote by Monday, July 13th, to then go and vote on August 11th. People can, COVID, oh my goodness, enough said, right? People can request an absentee ballot, and this is young people included, young people who may be in college or going off to college, people who are still here, get that absentee ballot. So you don't even have to, stand in line or go be around people to vote. But taking part, that is your civic duty. That is your civic responsibility, getting registered to vote. You can do that at 17 and a half. Get registered to vote, and make sure that your voice is heard, because you guys are the future of this county and this country.
Well,
Thank you.
it really sounds like we're looking forward to all the change that sounds like it's about to come. So what's the minimum number of years that you plan to serve? And that's, I guess I'll ask two questions. So one is, what's the minimum amount of years that you'd like to serve as a state court judge? And two is, are you planning on seeking a higher judicial post?
Well, I will say this. I will serve as long as the people of Gwinnett County would have me serve. For me, even running for judge has been about the community for me. It's been about seeking diversity at all levels of government, of our justice system. Right now, my goal, I ran for judge one time in 2018, wasn't successful, but I knew that this was a calling on my life. This was a part of this is part of my purpose. This is a part of what I'm supposed to do. And so I ran again this time in 2020. And, the people have spoken. Even though I ran unopposed, I got the most votes than any other candidate running in Gwinnett County. So as long as the people continue to elect me to serve the people of Gwinnett County, I will do that. Gwinnett County is approaching 1 million people. By the time, the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be at 1 million people plus. And so I will continue to serve both on the bench and off the bench. I'm involved in a number of initiatives outside of law as well. Some dealing with the youth, and not just Gwinnett County, all over the metro area, because that is something, I mentor young girls, I mentor youth, because that's something that I wish that I had growing up as a kid. Because it can make all the difference in the world in a young person's life, having someone to mentor them. So I will remain engaged in this county. I will continue to serve either on the state court bench or wherever it is that the community sees fit for me to serve.
So I guess I'm going to backtrack just slightly. Going back to really the beginning of when you told us about your law firm and all of the experience that you've had in the past, it sounds like everything was very successful. I mean, you've been doing or practicing law for 19 years now, a successful law firm, the Cove Law Firm. So what made you want to ascend to the bench? What made you switch and decide one night I'm going to be a judge?
Well, I will say it wasn't just the one night that I decided. I didn't just wake up, and decide that I wanted to be a judge. I realized that it was a part of my purpose after having conversations with a couple people, honestly, in the courthouse. I knew that one day, maybe after I've had 20 plus years of experience, I'll be ready then. And at the time, I had about 16 years of experience when I first decided to run for judge. I realized that every phase of my legal career had been preparing me to run for judge. The fact that I had represented from the little guy or girl to multi-million-dollar companies, to huge corporations. I've done everything that a judge would, a state court judge particularly would do. I've practiced various types of law, and just serving in the community. When I had that conversation, honestly, they said, well, I heard you're gonna run for a judge. And that was their way of encouraging me to run. I wasn't ready at that time. But the more I talked about it, I'm a woman of faith. So the more I prayed about it, the more I realized that this was a part of my purpose. And so from that point forward, and I will tell you, it was July the 7th, my favorite number, 7. July the 7th of 2017, I declared, meaning I filed the paperwork to become a judge. I knew at that point, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I've been working tirelessly to that goal. So, you hear the old cliche, the best day of your life is the day you find out your purpose. That's true. And for me, this is just another part of service. This is another part of me being able to give back to my community. At that time, there were no African Americans elected to either state or superior court. There were no people of color that had ever been elected to state or superior court in Gwinnett County. We are now fortunate to have our first elected official of color for the entire county of Gwinnett, Judge Rhonda Colvin-Leary, who will become my colleague on state court bench. And we also have appointed Judge Tadia Whitner-Jackson on the Superior Court bench. I believe that to have confidence, in our judicial system, we need to have people that look like and are reflective of the county. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to run. We also have an African-American man, Judge Rodney Harris, on our juvenile court bench. Excuse me. We have Judge Robert Walker. We have several judges in magistrate court that are of color, but we need more. We have 11 superior court judges. We have 6 state court judges. We have over 20 magistrate court judges. We have 3 juvenile court judges. We have 3 recorders court or recorders court judges. So we need representation, and it's not representation for representation's sake. It is to inspire confidence in our judiciary. It is to have not only diversity of race and diversity of gender, religion, but diversity of thought. We need all different types of diversity on our bench. That was one of the motivating factors, but not the only motivating factor. I knew that I had been specifically groomed to be a judge.
And this right here, this is what we preach: open-mindedness. This is what we stand for. Okay.
Absolutely.
Like we stand as a family bound to each other with love and respect. However, that last word respect, it's nobody pays attention to it nowadays. You open up a very good argument. Okay, so instead of people asking, okay, why did she switch from a lawyer to a judge? Now, since you provided logistics of the situation, you're like, okay, you know the law better. Now you can actually preach it impartially. And that right there, that is something a lot of people do not see. And based on our conversation with you, you have opened our minds. We really, really, really appreciate you coming on here. And this has been a very good experience for me, Lokesh, Jalen, and our whole community.
Well, I am so glad that you invited me to be a part of your podcast, to be a part of this conversation. These are conversations that we need to continue to have. Especially with everything that's going on in our country, in our communities as well. We need to have these conversations with bring everybody to the table, have that conversation. And they're tough conversations.
Yes.
They're tough for adults to have, so I know they're tough for the youth to have as well, but we have to, because the more we have these conversations, the more we can understand each other, the more we can get back to what Akil was saying about respect.
Yes, ma'am.
Being respectful of each other, respectful of our peers, and working together, because we are so much more effective together.
Yes.
Once we realize that, as opposed to working against each other, working with each other, there's nothing that we can't accomplish as a community.
Absolutely.
And may I even point out? Oh, go ahead, Lokesh. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that we work together, we grow together. If we're all gonna be divided, unity and diversity, we grow strong together. And so it's a learning opportunity for all of us. It's a working experience for all of us.
Hey, I'm sorry, Jalen. You have to have an opportunity to speak, because if you haven't figured out by now, I like to talk.
So
but
I
cannot stress enough. I cannot stress enough the importance, the depth of what you all are doing, of what you're taking on, in reaching out to politicians, elected officials, and all areas of government. You all are to be commended, because to step out and put together this organization, there's no better time to have these conversations than now. There's no better time to do what you guys are doing than now. I applaud you. And this is just the beginning of of what's to come. If there's any way that I can be of help in the future, please let me know. Don't stop what you're doing. Don't be discouraged by anyone. There will be, just like in life, and this is a little bit off topic, but just like in life, you're going to have opposition. Why are you doing this? What do you mean unity and diversity? What do you mean by diversity? Why do we need diversity? That's a whole different conversation, but don't stop what you're doing, because you will be the ones that will lead this conversation.
Absolutely.
This conversation, you will provide opportunities for these difficult, controversial conversations, and I applaud you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm just really proud of all of the things that we've done leading up to this, and really grateful and appreciative that you could even take the time to even come on here and speak with us. I'm sure that we're all at this point fed up with the direction that the country is going in. And me, Akil, and Lokesh realized that the only way for us to fix this country and be proud to be American again was to actually start having these conversations and get involved in politics and government, so that we can actually be the changing force in the future. Because I guarantee you, if we get in there, we will make a change.
Yeah, and everybody likes to post on social media, but who actually comes and actually talks to representatives, man?
I know.
Like
It's one that'll come and talk to you.
One thing, we're going to be going and we're not stopping, right? We have town hall scheduled for every Saturday. We have some sort of event scheduled each Saturday. We have a mental webinar coming up on August 1st. Until then, we have Danny Porter, our district attorney for Gwinnett County next week. and then we have Luz Solis the week after. And so it's a growing experience, right? In August, we have our representatives, we have our senators, and it's a growing experience for our community. It's a growing experience for all of us. I mean, you can just see in unity and diversity, we have our officer board is made up of people of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, and we're able to have these conversations with one another. And it was a great opportunity for us to expand just not from our own officer board, but expand it into the community, right? Today we have 100 people watching, tomorrow we'll have 1,000. The next day we'll have 10,000. And that's how we all believe we'll be able to make a change, is through people gaining on, right? I mean, it's that train. It starts off slow, but as you start going and you start running, it heats up, and you start getting some traction.
You will.
So it's all a learning experience, and especially today, there's so much that we've learned, so much that it's a new experience, something that I don't think anybody was expecting to come, and I don't think anybody was expecting really out of posting on social media, right? How one event sparked a whole movement of change, right, in our country. And quite honestly, it's something that really gets everything changing. And in the next 15 years, 15 years from now, we'll have a totally different conversation. It'll be something new. A new event will happen, and it'll spark a whole new light of change. And so it's a whole growing experience for a lot of us. And honestly, thank you, Mrs. Coe, for coming out, giving your time to us. I mean, obviously you're on a very busy schedule, but this was a very big learning experience for us.
Yeah.
You all are more than welcome. As I said, and I'll leave you with this: be the change that you want to see. You all are already doing
Absolutely.
that.
Thank you so much.
That's a famous quote that somebody said before me. But be that change that you want to see, and I'm happy to see you guys doing this, taking charge and taking the lead.
Thank you. And Lokesh, of course, he brought up a very, very important point. Big shout out to our leadership board. Big shout out to, Reshma Haqqani, Lauren Johnson, Joshua Baham. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys.
One event sparked it. The next week we were talking, and then the next week we actually took action. And I feel like a lot of our youth, looking at this event, this will spark a whole new train of, okay, let's get something done. Let's do something. How about we go out and we get registration for voting? How about we go out to our judges? We start talking to our judges. We start having conversations with our district attorneys. We're scheduling these events, but I do feel like the youth in other counties too. I know Forsyth County, Fulton County, people are running now. People are going to go, starting from your local. I mean, I've heard this often that, vote presidential, but I personally don't feel like that matters. I feel like our local level, until we don't make change at our local level, until we don't vote at our local level, going up there won't make any difference. And I do feel like you coming on board with us, showing us your support, it doesn't mean a lot to us. It means a lot to all of us, right? I mean, it's not just about you or I. It's about everybody who's watching this, and everybody this will make an impact on. And it brought a new it shedded light on a whole new topic, on a topic of why it's important for us to actually be involved and not think, it'll be all right, there's other people to handle it. We are those other people now.
We elect those other people.
We do, and we're going to be those other people.
You elect, the people who lead you, and people sometimes lose sight of that. So, that's something that I pledge, that I'll never lose sight of the people that put me in office, the people who, elect all of our leaders.
Absolutely.
You guys are integral part of that. And if you're not quite 18 yet, you will be soon. And wherever you are, you will be making those decisions. Your vote is your voice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mrs.
We applaud you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Good luck for
good luck.
You get on again.
We got your back all the way through your campaign.
Thank you. You just have to come and see me one day, one day after January.
Absolutely.
Definitely. All right, guys. So this has been the first UD Town Hall with Veronica Coe. Thank you guys for attending.
Thank you guys.
Look forward to next week where you'll be interviewing DA Danny Porter.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Coe, once again.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in, the people who are viewing.